Hello and welcome to AWS Made Easy. This is the show where we talk about all things AWS, talk about AI, cost optimization, and interview folks from AWS community. This week we are so happy that we have Banjo returning to the show, Banjo Obayomi from AWS. And Banjo, welcome back. How have you been?
Hey, Stephen. Hey, it's great to see y'all again. I'm excited to talk about AI. I love AI, so ready to give you some updates on things I've been building.
No, I was watching the episode that we did and the shorts that we had, and we talked about go and be a builder. I think was how you kind of end that show. Just like it's never been a better time to be a builder. Now, do you stand by that, or was that true a year ago? What do you think?
Still true today. There's even more tools, more things to play with, vibe coding, all these extra
Yeah.
things. So people are really excited to build things, and I think that's just going to accelerate. Everybody can be a builder.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think this is an absolutely amazing time. So tell us a little bit about what you've been up to, Banjo. What's been going on?
Yeah. So I started a new role since last time. So I'm a solutions architect focused on AI. So helping customers dive deep on how they can deploy generative AI applications at scale. So a little bit new, but enjoying it, learning a lot of things, really diving deep and seeing how customers can really scale workloads. Because everybody needs help with AI, but where to start? So having me as a trusted advisor to help get that project off the road has been great.
Great. So one of the questions I've always had is a lot of AWS customers, at least the last time we spoke, they were trying to kind of get their feet wet with stuff that was happening in AI, just trying to dabble with some experimentation. We hadn't really seen any real world massive workloads. I mean, apart from the IDEs and stuff that, of course, appeal to developers. But are you starting to see a lot more customers adopt AI at a very large scale, deployed across all of their customer base and so on, and really see massive scale like you typically see with AWS services, like databases and so on?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of customers really get their data strategy first because without good data, it's hard to really take advantage of AI. So making sure your data lake is in place, where your PDFs are, your structured data. Some customers are like asking very like a relational type of questions, and they're just stuffing PDF but not putting their data in like a structured vector store. So that's really where you can get the value. Like, so I think customers are starting to figure out, okay, we need to get our data in order, and then once we
Mhm.
have that, we can really take advantage of the large scale AI applications.
So are most customers kind of starting off with something like a simple chatbot to make customers to interact with customers in a more natural way with also with all the underlying data? Is that what the primary use case the
Yeah, a lot
customers
of
are working with?
customers are focused on like internal chatbots. We have a bunch of
Mhm.
PDF documents, we have a bunch of Slack messages, we have a bunch of things in SharePoint. How do we get all this information and correlate it and ask questions, search through that? We're having to dig through multiple files, open up old emails. So it's really how can I get that data catalog and find the relevant information I need so I can accelerate what I'm doing.
Got
Now,
it.
how much of this is knowledge bases versus training custom models or derivative, what do they call it, distilling models, fine tuning models? How does that break down in terms of um, getting these chatbots to where they want to be?
Yeah, I say most customers haven't really got to the point where I'm like distilling models or fine tuning models because they don't have an evaluation criteria. So that's the first thing. How do you know that
Yeah.
this model is better than the fine tuned model? What if a new upgrade of this model comes out? Do I have my training data set? So starting with the evaluation criteria, so you really understand this is the type of response I have and being able to run that suite of evaluation. Our customers are just starting to build that up. So I think that in idea, model distillation, fine tuning is great, but if you have no evaluation to benchmark that, then you're going to be wasting your time. So,
Makes total sense. I have a follow-up question on that. Of all the use cases you've come across with your customers, is there one that made you go, huh, I didn't think AI would be applied to something like this?
not quite. I think AI, to me, AI is like electricity. Everything we use electricity for can be done anything. So, a lot of customers have been creative. Some people have underestimating what AI can do. They're like, here's a CSV of this, make me a completely new app, and I want 100% accuracy on that. So I think some people are learning the capabilities of what AI can do, and I think slowly by playing around, testing it, you see, oh, okay, I can't just stuff thousands and thousands of CVS files and understand it make everything. So understanding data access patterns, putting things together. So I think customers are very eager to try everything and just say, oh, I hit a limitation here. How can I actually do this for real? So I think still a lot of experimentation, try to find out, what I call the jagged frontier of AI, where it's very good at some things, but very bad at other
Mhm.
things. So finding what those limitations are and seeing how you could fit your use case in that.
Got it. Um, when you're talking to your customers, like what's a typical, now you are the solutions architect within AWS. You work very closely with customers to get their problems or their solutions deployed and deployed correctly. And typically, solutions architects are also there in an advisory role where they are advising customers how to do it most efficiently, most effectively. What's a typical engagement like with these customers?
Yeah, customers are really kind of like, we just heard about AI, we're seeing all these cool things. How can we get there? How can we not get left behind? So how can we develop an AI strategy? How can we
Mhm.
evaluate? How can we keep up? So it's really, guiding customers along that journey. How can you, have a robust data strategy? How can I have an evaluation framework? How can I try different models? How do I have the skills in house to like write code, understand how to use the new tools that are coming out? So
Mhm.
it's kind of like there was a word people used to call digital transformation back in the day. So it's like this is like an AI transformation. How can we leverage AI to be an AI native company? So I think that's kind of the conversations I'm starting to have a lot more of customers, so they can really embrace and take advantage of what AI can do.
Now, are you
Got
finding
it.
the customers are coming from a mandate perspective, like we've seen with Shopify, where it's okay from the top down, it's use AI for everything, or is it more from the bottom up, like, hey, help us convince our boss's boss that this is a good idea?
Yeah, I'd say it's more top down. It's like the CEO wants everybody to use AI. CTO, like we got to be AI first. So like, how can we implement that? So definitely, organizations are uh, looking for advice. How do we get started with that? One thing with AI, though, it does empower individuals, so it is more of a bottom up technology. So you have to empower like everybody in the organization to understand how to use AI. You mentioned like the Shopify example; it wants everybody to start using that. So it really has to be kind of a mind shift. Shift like waterfall to agile, that type of thing. So how do you get an AI native workforce?
Got it. So for AWS customers out there, what is your advice, particularly for folks who just want to get started, they don't know where to get started? Should they be talking to a solutions architect like you to kind of engage and figure out what the next or what the first step should be, and then how do they build up, the next steps from there?
Yeah, it's really, I would like to say, what is your use case? What are you trying to solve? What are your pain points? How do you see AI leveraging that? And then, talking to solution architect can help you, create an architecture, a path to do that. How do you evaluate that? How do I get started? There's so many different models. So it's a bit of a curiosity and then really understanding what the actual pain point is, which is very hard before even writing a single line of code, how you evaluate that. So I think curiosity is the most important thing. And then reaching out to experts and consultants, whatnot, when you need to dive deeper.
Now, how do you deal with the the landscape changing so quickly? I've been in, a long time ago when I started in tech consulting, and you could say, okay, what's going to be the case 2 years from now? You might have a 6.1 to 6.2, but it'll be basically the same thing. But now you can say, well, by the time this project is done in 6 months, what's Sonnet 3.8 going to be like, or GPT-5?
By then, it might be 6.0.
Yeah, exactly. How do you think about that in terms of like how do you even target what the expectations can be if it's changing so fast?
Yeah, there's that famous Jeff Bezos quote, just like, I'm not worried about what's changing, everything's going to change, but what's going to stay the same. So, understanding like my customers are going to care about this, they want to have like lower prices, whatnot. So, how do you get things faster? So, AI, there's always going to be a new model. There's probably a new model released today. So, having that evaluation framework, having your data, capturing that, so really understanding the foundation of what you're doing, so you can really take advantage of all the new things that are coming out. There's going to be a new model every week. So how do you really have that foundation to take advantage of that?
Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, there are a lot of the foundations themselves that are changing. For example, with the kind of stuff that's happening with multimodal, now you can literally have a real time conversation with some of these AI models. Um, AI models are now generating everything from real lifelike, images and video in near real time. AI models can now control your computer, control your browser, control systems that you would. It's not just text anymore. It's just so many new things. How should customers prepare for evaluation frameworks and things like that when a lot of the fundamentals that you didn't question before are now being questioned, and now AI models allow you to do things that even 6 months ago you wouldn't think were possible?
I don't know if I'm questioning the foundations of like changing. Like people have always made images, people have always made videos, have looked through things, quality control. There's been, software to control browsers for a long time, but now the barrier to entry to get started it's much lower. So now what kind of use cases does that enable? Can you offload some of that work? Now that this work is offloaded, where do you see more value? How can I grow my business? So understanding those foundations and building mechanisms to automate them or make them much more efficient by all the advances in AIs, that's one way to take advantage. If I'm doing quality control on a bunch of like short form videos, I can use AI to look at every frame per second and say, is there anything wrong here? I can make an
Mhm.
API to do that before a human might have to go through that image and look through everything exactly. So things like that are now possible as the AI gets more advanced.
Correct. But what's the equivalent of an evaluation framework for these? Because you typically had humans do them. You never thought that you'd need a framework for evaluating AIs and computers for something like this.
Yeah, I like to think of it like a framework of like systems, jobs, and tasks. I'm system. I'm part of the AWS solution architects. My job, I'm a solution architect, and my task is I engage with customers. I help them. I draw architecture diagrams. I write code.
Mhm.
Well, how do I, evaluate that task? The customer liked this code. I need to write code for that particular task. I can use Amazon Q Developer to help me write something very quickly instead of having to look through a bunch of docs. So understanding the task level of what that job does and putting frameworks, mechanism evaluations around that is going to help you accelerate and find out other things you can do. Now that I don't have to spend as much time writing code, what are some other higher value things I can do? Building relationships with customers, going to on-site events. Now that I'm not having to do a bunch of research, I can draw a diagram by pressing a button. So now I'm freeing up my time to do more higher value activities. So that's
Mhm.
how I look at it from the task level and seeing what I can use AI to enhance myself with.
That's really neat. And I really liked what you said about focusing more on the human part of it. And I was asked recently by a friend of mine who said, "Okay, um, what do I focus on now that?" Because he was coming from a programming background. What do I focus on now that programming isn't? Programming manually might not be as valuable. Should I deep dive into using AI? Which, of course, yes. But then also, my response was, also look at the managerial stuff because dealing with an AI in a lot of ways is like you said, dealing with a human in some respects. In that, um, it's a force to accomplish a task. It's going to need feedback. It's going to need evaluation. There's a cost to it, and so almost it's just a much more extreme parameterization of it.
Oh yeah, I can think of like an AI as an overly eager intern that can do so much, but you have to, prompt engineer, here's what you have to do, how you can check things out. You might have to babysit it a little bit. So it is, yeah, stealing. I like to use that over eager, super smart intern that you just need to, craft to the ultimate, helper.
One of my kids was
Ah,
using Chat GPT while they were cooking, and they said, "Oh, can I substitute this type of flour with this type of flour?" And he goes, "Yeah, go for it." And I'd say, "Okay, try asking what else you could do, and you might want to phrase it as, will this work, and what will I have to do in order
Yes.
to make it the same as it was going to be."
Yeah, it's very over eager to please. It's definitely something you've seen.
talking about smarts, one of the most recent hype, and partly real as well, is MCP. Um, it's basically the Model Context Protocol helping LLMs get tons of more context from all these external tools and connectivity and stuff like that. It started off as Anthropic kind of coming up with this protocol definition, but it's caught on like wildfire. Everyone is building an MCP server, and there's a lot of garbage out there as well. How are you seeing MCPs, their use, the ecosystem, and what's AWS doing in that space?
Yeah, MCP is awesome because it allows you to. I mean, people think of MCP as a way to give models access to different programs via
Mhm.
API. So back in the day, there's like a open API spec, which taught
Yes.
how do you develop an API for like if I want to make a curl request and then this happened, the RESTful API, the open API spec gave you standards to do that. Now MCP is the evolution of that in one way for how can you
Mhm.
get a LLM to access different API tools and codify that. So in terms of AWS, we actually have released some MCP tools. So there's the AWS Labs GitHub repo that has a bunch of
Yep.
MCP tools. One of them can actually query AWS documentation. There's lots of AWS documentation, so I can just install this like a MCP client like Claude Desktop and say, give me the latest info on the Amazon S3 documentation, and I can use
Mhm.
that MCP tool to grab that. There's also one that can generate diagrams. There's one that can use Amazon Canvas to draw images. So it's really giving these MCP clients extra abilities to do things that aren't in that initial client. So I post an example how I used Amazon Nova Act to actually search through like game FAQs and then go to Amazon.com and find me all the video game from the top 10. It was able to open 10 parallel browser sessions, make a CSV for me. So doing kind of that research. So
Mhm.
without the MCP connectivity, Claude Desktop would have not been able to do that.
Yeah. Follow up on that. One of my dreams from the very early days of AWS was the fact that if someday there was truly intelligent AI and it had access to my AWS account and everything within it, it could do a lot of the work that we have, that's really hard to get right and usually very error prone when humans do it. And that AI would probably do a better job monitoring, managing, and refining uh, you know, the setup. For example, if I had an application and I had to make sure that it was compliant with the well-architected framework, right? Something like that would be perfect for an AI to go do. But one of the challenges you run into is AWS has what now 300,000 plus API across all the different services. So when you think at that scale, MCP, of course, would struggle with something like this. But is there any thinking behind trying to tackle that kind of a problem? Because if AWS was to have MCPI's services, what would that look like, and what's AWS views on it?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, the AWS console, it's its own thing, and there's so many, the Python developer Boto 3 can access
Right.
all the different things. So, from a AI perspective, like AI can write code, and then I think getting that documentation from like the documentation MCP server, and then writing the code to do that. So, having a way to verify in code, especially when it comes to like infrastructure, you're doing things, you want to have it repeatable. So, I know there's
Mhm.
cloud formation, things of that nature. So, I think for AWS purposes, the code is still a good place to have things, but then having these supporting MCP servers like documentation, testing, how do you validate things, those I guess auxiliary MCP servers can help in that process. But you still want to have a code artifact you can go to, a CDK stack you could undeploy, redeploy. So I think that's
Mhm.
still code is still important for that, especially for infrastructure.
That's actually a very interesting pattern. It's not the common pattern you would use, because the common pattern is you have an LLM. LLM uses MCP to connect to various different API or endpoints or tools or whatever you want to call it. And here you're basically using one set of meta endpoints or tools to then write code that will do exactly what you need it to do across a very, very large set of API endpoints. That's actually a very neat pattern.
It makes sense in that you still have this ground truth that you, in this case, the CloudFormation template. I've been thinking about this
Mhm.
in the context of, well, I've been using an MCP WordPress agent to make changes to a website. And on the one hand, it's really cool that you can just say, "Hey, go find this page and update this little thing. I want to have a featured image on this page," and it'll go and do it. But you also realize there's no like first party state that because usually you think, okay, I've got some markdown files and the website, if I have my tooling right, is a reflection of what I wanted to do in these markdown files. But if you just go and tell the MCP server, go and make it this way, then you don't have like a reference for it to go back to. And I could see that being even more dangerous if you just go into your AWS account and say, okay, fire up all these different things, make it go and do this and this and this and this, and it'll go and do it. But then if you say, wait, what was I thinking? And when I go through my old code, that's always my biggest question is, what was I thinking? And if you don't have a reference to kind of say, well, what was I thinking when I put up these instances and this SQS queue and all this other stuff? So I like that. It's a long-winded way of saying I like that you still have a reference point that isn't necessarily AI controlled.
Yeah, you'd always be able to revolve any AI thing. Yes, checkpoints. Yes, they're very important.
Great. So tell us about an interesting project that you've been working on that you think everyone else should go try.
Yeah, I mean, I love video games. So I wanted to see, there was a hackathon not too long ago about making a video game that's pure vibe coding. So
Nice.
one of my favorite, yeah. So I was what the goal was to make a game about like looking at the code and say accept, go do that. So my game was like a robot battle simulator. So think like battle bots where you can like pick different things and like have the robots move around and jump in the arena. Use 3GS, so it's like a 3D environment. So that was just really fun to just try it out. I've never used like 3GS. I mean, I've used JavaScript, but not that particular library. And it's kind of like using the AI to say, fix this code, do this. Oh, I need to change that. definitely learned some things because my files got too big and it became very hard for like the AI to debug the code. So I was like, okay, don't make anything over 1,000 lines of code. And once it starts getting big, try to refactor it. So you learn some things as you're going through, make a spec file at the beginning to know what type of technologies you use so the AI doesn't hallucinate or add extra things in. So I think going through that exercise for me was very fun to just understand the limitations, how you can set up a project, and how you can really accelerate development.
Awesome. Is it publicly viewable?
I believe. Yeah. Did I post it? I think I posted it on my LinkedIn. Yeah, so you can try it out. I'll post it here. The game's not that good, of course. It's just my first time trying to make a game, but it was a cool experiment for me just to try something out.
I will put it on screen for a second. Let's check this out.
Oh yeah. Oh geez. I gotta be embarrassed about my game, but
cool.
It's okay.
All right.
Oh geez. I hope the Whitetail instance is still up.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Let's see. Heavy chassis, laser, EMP. Let's go heel and heavy legs. There we go.
Is EMP self-destructive in this scenario?
Oh, okay. It's not lagging too bad. Yeah, I used a very small light cell instance, so it's kind of like
this is cool.
Host the game.
All right, it's a little on the laggy side.
Yeah, it's kind of laggy now. I've not checked the instance in a while, so
that's all right. Okay, I can see where this is going. I mean, this is.
Yeah, you can see the vision is there, and I can join the game, like be multiplayer. So
this is cool.
Nice.
Why is my
I'm
backwards?
Problem with me. Okay, I joined the game too, so hopefully I see you in there.
Let's see if I can find you.
I think it's the camera angle. If you were in front of the person, you would actually see the name correctly.
Oh, I got you.
No, I think that's it. Oh, I think I see your. Yeah, I see your bot. Oh, mine's not as lucky as yours. Whee! Yeah, you see me? There I am.
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, so mine's not. So attacking you. Oh yeah, this was.
So there I go.
You got shot.
Yeah, so clearly there's still some bugs to work out, but the vision is there.
I'll send you my my Chrome version.
Yes.
Figure out what's going on. That's cool. It's for whenever I show, my kids will see a game or something. So, all right, let's try and make something like that, right? Because now it's not like this 6-month lift. It's let's just give it a shot, right? Why not just type stuff in?
So, Banjo, a follow up on that for all these large customers who are starting to take on AI in a big way. For them, AI itself is new. I assume that any cost implications are going to be that much more difficult, or um, there aren't many best practices around for you know cost optimization on your AI spend. What
Sure.
are your top two or three recommendations that you have for these customers when they get started?
Yeah, I mean, you see token count. What's a token? People always ask that, so it's hard to understand like what's going in, what's going out. So having some way to log your input, output token, and those are charged differently too. So it
Yeah.
gets like confusing. So there are different ways to check what that usage is. So I always say log your input and output tokens to have a way to track what you're using. Having a way to evaluate if your response was good too. So I think that's
Hmm.
also I've been mentioning that a lot, but having an evaluation to understand if it's good, how many of the average tokens are you using? So for a response for that particular use case. So having a way to manage tokens is definitely important when it comes to cost optimization.
Got
I
it.
don't think there's something like a well architected like agent yet. maybe something maybe something I can work on to understand how you can make the pillars for making an AI agent or bot. So that could be
Mhm.
something cool to work on. But I think tokens is going to be will definitely be part of that. How do you evaluate cost?
Got it. By the way, there is an amazing AWS feature called caching that you can
Yeah.
actually turn on, your prompt caching. This can go a long way, particularly if you're hitting the same prompt over and over again across multiple users. Those prompts and the responses are cached for 5 minutes at a time, which could make a huge difference as long as your answers are not changing constantly.
Mm.
That could significantly reduce your costs, and I don't see any reason to not turn it on. It's
Yeah,
probably
for
one of those
big
things that should be
system
turned on by
prompts and
default.
like lots of context you're stuffing in,
Right.
like yeah, prompt caching is a no-brainer. Yeah, that's
The
saving
prompt
costs.
caching is something that you should just turn on by default. There should be no reason to not turn it on,
There's
and it could
also
benefit you a ton.
there's also batch inference if you're doing something that's not real
True.
time and you just need to do something. That also has cost less cost by just sending them and you wait for a couple maybe a minute or hour and then you get all your responses back depending on how many you had.
Correct.
So that's one if you don't need a real time access.
Correct. In fact, I was talking to somebody, one of the AWS customers, just earlier this week, and they were telling me about how the fact that they use batch inferencing reduced their cost by 50% because they were able to get stuff running kind of in an async mode. The cost was significantly lower, and that 50% reduction in cost just by moving all of that processing to async mode. They were processing a bunch of forms, trying to understand what the content of those forms were. So batch processing really helped, batch inferencing, um, and they were able to process a ton more in parallel, but at the same time at 50% less cost.
It's very similar to EC2, right? Like the on-demand price is like the worst price. And
Yes.
okay, sure, you can do that, but let's then back up and say, okay, can you do batching, right? If you're going through
Yeah.
emails or photos or your old files or something, right? You can probably don't need that the second you ask.
Yep. So, Banjo, tell me this. What in the last month's announcements have you been most excited about?
I really
I know it's a hard one
enjoyed.
to pick.
There's so many things that came out. So yeah, well, I'll say some of my favorites. I talked about Nova Act earlier, so that was really
Yeah.
cool. The browser automation SDK. So back in the day, I like to try to write Selenium code and have to like look at all these H1 tags and this and like
Right.
grab information. But now you just say click search box and it does
Right.
all that for you in the background. So that's been a game changer for this kind of browser automation capabilities. And there's also a Nova Sonic, which is a speech to
Yep.
speech model. So it's able to just talk in natural language real time and it's very fast. It has all the capabilities as like a regular LLM, so there's tool calling, knowledge base hookup. So
Mhm.
this is kind of like a real time call agent. Call a phone, you can talk to Amazon Nova Sonic, and like it can help you with something. So I think those two in particular were really cool for me.
That's really
I
awesome.
need to jump in with a slightly nostalgic story on my appreciation for Nova Act. My one of my early jobs was at Microsoft, and we were testing Windows XP Service Pack 2 before it was going to be released for third-party app compatibility. And we were writing this automation code where it was like start up this third-party app, click the OK button, and you're kind of exercising these third-party apps. And it was so cumbersome, right? Because we were like, at best, we can open up some of the ActiveX stuff, but then sometimes it was literally just, okay, on a 1024 by 768 screen, this dialog box pops up at pixel 700 by 457. So move the mouse there and hit the button. It's like being able to just tell a UI what to do in plain old English is like, I'll always go back and think about how much time I spent kind of working around that.
Yeah. Do you see a huge adoption of that? Because I imagine that for your UI test cases, where traditionally you've had suites of these, use cases where just defined in English, and when they're translated to code, they don't always work. But now that you have everything in English, the AI can just adapt to exactly how the user would see it on the screen, and it can make those minute adjustments and click just the right box, even though a bunch of things around it might have changed. Do you see a huge adoption of that for the UI testing and things like that?
Well, it just got released, so it's still early. It's also in research preview, so
That's true.
it's not production ready, but it's still getting ready, testing it out. So I think there's definitely gonna be a lot of adoption, especially for those type of UI use cases, testing. For me, one thing I'm thinking about is I make a lot of workshops. So I was gonna say, can my Nova Act, your agent, go through my workshop by clicking the button and making sure things work? So like things like that. So I definitely did a lot of use cases, but it's still early days. So excited to see where it goes.
And that's a great use case. It's also testing the clarity of your instruction, right? Can Nova Act figure out like, is this solvable?
Click this button, exactly. So,
no, I've got another question for you that we talked about the other day. MCP versus Bedrock inline agents. What are Bedrock inline agents? What are their advantages over other ways of getting AIs to do things?
Yeah. So there are a lot of agent frameworks. So Bedrock Inline Agent is just another agent framework, but the differentiator here is that you define it all through code. So in the Bedrock agent, there's a console where you can click around, set instructions. There's CloudFormation as well too, but that it's still not. It wasn't built for, I guess, code first. The Bedrock Inline Agent is built code first, as you put everything there. And one of the neat things about that, it has MCP support, so you can add a MCP as a tool. So natively, Bedrock Inline supports that. So that's kind of the difference there. The MCP is using inline agents. So you can almost think of inline agent as a MCP client because it can leverage those servers to do something.
Okay, so could we talk through a use case of that? So if I was so like right now, say I have a project where I'm looking at Google Sheets and I have a list of changes I want to make to a website. So I've got a Google Sheets MCP server and I've got a WordPress MCP server. So if I wanted to use inline agents, would I give one agent access to both tools, or would I have two inline agents coordinating, or what would you
For that use case, I would use two. I'll give that single agent to MCP tools and give it a prompt. You're like a WordPress developer updating a site. You need to get the CSV data from Google Sheets and then upload it to this WordPress price. So it would have access to those two tools. It would think through what it needs to be done and leverage that, write the code or whatever the mechanism is to update that and do that. So yeah, it's just giving that agent the abilities to interact with those external services.
And then so the advantage of having an inline agent. So once I have this inline agent, then I'll execute it from Python, and then I could start up 100 of them at once if I wanted to.
Exactly.
Okay. And so that's the benefit versus doing it from, say, Claude Desktop, where even if I had connected to the MCP servers, I'm still going through
manually typing and looking at the UI. Well, this is this code you can run async.
I'm not ashamed to say it had Claude Desktop open. Okay, do task 27, and just gonna keep an eye on things on the other monitor.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my last question in this series is going to be, what's next? What's the most exciting thing that you want? I know AWS won't tell me or talk to me about any of the announcements that are coming up, but what do you have in your experimentation pipeline over the next month? What are you looking forward to tackling, solving, learning more about, or getting customers more accustomed to?
Yeah, I think people are really excited about agents, but kind of like I alluded, there's so many agent framework. What does an agent mean? How do I get
Right.
started with that? So I think this idea of like a well architected agent is something I'm kind of
Hmm.
looking into. What is that? How do you even get started with agents? What would the agent be good for? There are a lot of like thought pieces and blog posts around that. So kind of just taking that from the like the sphere of what developers are doing right now and trying to put my thoughts into that and create content around that. So how you can get started with agent, what are they good for, how you can build with it, do you even need an agent? So I think really understanding those use cases is what I'm excited because I'm hearing a lot of talk of that, but I still think
Yeah.
people don't understand how we can really implement them and try them out. So that's really exciting for me.
Yeah, I think agents is really going to be the big change uh, in the near future because agents are kind of like the human equivalent of your team. Uh, Particularly, I mean, right now, phase one of AI has been, oh, you chat with a bot or you chat with an LLM to get some basic stuff done, but it's more like a one-on-one interaction. But it's very limited in getting real work done. It's great for research. It's great for writing up, content, text output, or just generating some basic stuff. But that's not what humans typically do in the real world. And when you want some real world work done, then it just makes sense to have an agent that has a very specialized role, that has very specialized capabilities, and can then access the external world to get that job done. And then when you can have a team of agents, just like you have a team of your own that interacts with each other to get something done, that's just going to be miraculous.
Oh yeah, I like to
Uh,
think of it like as a contract. I'm finding a contract for somebody to
yeah,
solve this problem. How would an agent
correct,
solve that? What's the evaluation criteria? What does that contract mean? Go figure it out. So I think that kind of like framing helps think about agents as well.
correct. In fact, one of the things that I've been very, very excited about, particularly with a lot of my teams, is I've started building out these coaches. So things that are in my head, things that I want to teach others to do the way I would like it done, or taking a lot of the knowledge that has been built up over the years, but letting someone benefit from that. And the fact that I don't have infinite bandwidth to sit and patiently answer every question and sit through maybe hours of coaching. I'm not scalable in the same way, but the fact that you can create an agent, which is basically a coach, that can coach someone on my team to do something the way I would like to get it done, is remarkable. It's amazing how effective it is in getting stuff done. And the quality of the work just increases. More so, the learning that happens when you're in that mode, when you're trying to learn, from the coaching, is significantly better. I don't think I could have done that good a job of teaching someone some of those things, or even articulating some of those things as well as some of these LLMs can do it.
I've been thinking about that a bit, Raul. Like, and again, like referencing, you know, looking at the way we learn stuff, reading the documentation or the spec, or later, read the
Yes.
Wikipedia article, and then watching my kids interact with AI versus Wikipedia, and they're like, well, Wikipedia, there's no explanation. It's just a list of
Hmm.
a list of sentences, but there's no personalization. There's no, it's not interacting
Correct.
with me, and I guess that's the expectation going forward now. It's not just the facts, but it's how does the facts apply to you using an intelligence. Banjo, how has your experience been with Novasonic?
Oh yeah, it's great. I mean, just got out. Enjoying the real time collaboration. So the
Hmm.
communication is it's very fast. So I definitely enjoy that, and the fact that it has access to tools and knowledge bases as well makes it more like a real time agent that can speak to. So right now it's just speech to speech. So you have to talk to it. So
Yeah.
that's one of the limitations. But it is it's real time. It's very fast. So I do enjoy
Do you think we're at the my benchmark for this is the Star Trek computer? So are we there yet?
that. I think, oh yeah, I mean, as a very specialized agent, so because it can respond in real time, it can access different tools, it can do things. So I definitely think for like any type of speech action, it can help with that.
Awesome.
Mhm.
All right. Well,
I would-
go Raul, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say this is just such an exciting time and an exciting space. We could end up talking endlessly about it, but as folks who are getting used to AWS, who are trying to learn about AWS, there's just so many of these new services that you should just give it a shot. Spend 1 hour trying out one of these new tools, trying out one of these new services. You might actually discover amazing new use cases for you to apply these to. Any other recommendations, Banjo, that you would give to newbies who are just trying to get started, trying to understand AWS and just
Yeah,
trying
you gotta
to
get
navigate
started.
this labyrinth?
Yeah, just got to get started. So, like, especially when it comes to AI, there's like a new website called NovaAmazon.com, and you can just
Yeah,
chat with Nova. You can use the image generation, the video generation, the speech to speech is also there too, and it's
yeah.
completely free. Log in with like an Amazon.com account. So, I think that curiosity is really what's going to set folks apart. So, go out there, try. Don't be afraid. I mean, there are a lot of free things to try. Amazon Q Developer, that's free. You don't need a credit card, nothing. You can install in your IDE, start using it. So that curiosity, don't be afraid to try. There's no cost to you. And now go build.
I love it.
That's a perfect way to end the session. Uh, Building is where we are all at. So thank you so much for joining us, Banjo. Really appreciate it. This
For
has been
sure.
an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Till next time.